Hi everyone, my name is Jaspreet Singh. I'm an identity and security engineer. I run hands-on Microsoft Entra ID security labs on f11.ca where I document real misconfiguration and how to fix them. Today's lab is based on blocking access for high and medium risk sign-ins. One thing we must understand that most Microsoft Entra tenants detect risky sign-ins, but the real problem is detection alone does not stop a breach. If Entra detects a high or medium sign-in risk, the user still gets access. That's a security failure. In this video, I'll show you a real lab setup where we block access automatically when sign-in risk is high or medium using a conditional access policy. Let's start. Before we create a policy, let's try to understand what is the sign-in risk. So we must understand that there are two types of risks in Microsoft 365 Entra ID. So one is a user risk, a sign-in risk. I've already created videos on user risk, so I'm not going to talk about user risk today. However, today we are going to talk about sign-in risk. So what sign-in risk looks? Sign-in risk, we must understand that sign-in risk is a login event. It's a login. And any specific login activity, any specific login event looks suspicious will be marked as either high or medium sign-in risk. How Microsoft will detect? There are a couple of scenarios where Microsoft detects the login event as specific login event as suspicious. For instance, impossible travel, which means one thing is, let's say you stay in Canada and within 5 minutes somebody logs in from India. No one can travel from Canada to India within 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Not possible. So that will trigger a sign-in risk. Second would be you work in Regina. Let's say something unusual behavior. For instance, your usual behavior is you work from office. Okay, you work from office. Let's say your weekly routine is Monday to Friday. You work from office. However, one day for work purpose you travel to another city. Let's say Saskatoon, and you checked into a hotel and connected to the hotel Wi-Fi. You will be getting a different IP address. That will trigger a medium or high risk alert. So something unusual, right? Usual behavior is this, but something unusual. You logged into a different hotel, the different IP address, that will trigger an alert. Third thing would be you using an anonymous VPN's IP address. That will trigger a high or medium sign-in risk alert. Fourth point will be somebody is using a password spray attack on your account. That will also trigger a high or medium sign-in risk. This matters to MSPs and the business spec, plus I would say IT admins as well. So what happens is, if you're going to block the sign-in at risk, high risk or medium risk, we will be able to stop the attacker early. We can reduce the incident response. This will also help us in reducing the downtime significantly, and eventually we will be able to reduce the business risk drastically. Let's say this attacker tries to log in to this user account, this user A user, right? And if we have a condition CA policy implemented to block the access if something unusual happens on account, if hacker tries to get access to this account, something unusual happens, CA policy will immediately block the access for this user, which means the user will be blocked from login to this account, and that's it. So nothing is compromised, no risk, and everything is protected. However, if we don't have a policy in place, user can still log in, risk can persist, user can stay at risk, sign-in risk, and your attacker can log in, move to SharePoint, download data, set up some external rules to forward emails. We will never know what's going on, and that's a significant risk if we don't set up these policies. Let's talk about the lab prerequisites. For this lab, I'm going to use Microsoft Entra ID P2 license, or if you have already Microsoft 365 E5 license, that will also work. You need global admin role or security admin role. A test user to test a break glass account, to exclude from the policy. So Microsoft recommends never apply a conditional access policy to all users without excluding a break glass account. Mistake number one that we are going to talk about today is IT admins, they always configure user risk instead of sign-in risk. User risk and sign-in risk both are separate, and they have a misconception. They look identical, therefore they think both are same, which is not true. They both have different purposes and they require different measures. Sign-in risk is a login event. User risk is an identity base. It means account is compromised. So mistake number two is IT admins, they don't exclude break glass accounts in the conditional access policy, which means they end up selecting all users and they forget to exclude break glass account. IT admins log themselves out. If something is misconfigured, you cannot go back and turn off the policy. And what they end up doing is calling to Microsoft to help them, and this can take days, week, and imagine the risk or downtime if somebody cannot log in. That's a disaster. Therefore, always exclude the break glass account from the policies. They leave policy in read-only mode, which means so when we create a policy, Microsoft gives us an option to validate what the impact will be on the users when we are going to force the policy. This is the last and one of the common mistakes that I feel is most IT admins have a misconception or misunderstanding that IT admins think that Microsoft will protect the account from being compromised without conditional access policy if something unusual happens on account. So how we can validate the policy, whether it works. So what I'm going to do is I'll take you to the Microsoft 365 admin portal and I'll show you the policy. I'll try to reproduce the issue by trying to log in from a Tor browser, and I'll show you sign-in risky events from the Microsoft 365 Entra ID portal. I'll try to enforce the same policy requiring the completely blocking access, which means user will be able to authenticate himself or herself. However, they will not be able to log into the office.com. So let's validate. So now I'll take you to the 365 admin portal. So this is the policy that I've created. It's conditional access, high sign-in risk, and I'll validate the same users. CA high risk policy. I've selected all users. However, I've excluded my break glass account. As you can see, I've got 2 admins account, which I've already excluded. I'm applying this policy to all resources, including all cloud apps, which means anything which is related to Microsoft Cloud will require this, will enforce the policy on these all cloud apps. Conditions, I've configured sign-in risk, high and medium here. As you can see, I don't want to set low and no risk. That will create a lot, noise and incidents. The best advice would be to go with the medium and high risk alert, although it depends on your company's level as well, and it depends on the security posture level as in how you guys want to set up your alerts, whether you want to receive alerts for medium risk as well or a high risk as well. I'm not talking about user risk policy, that's not configured here. In the grant where we're going to decide, so I've selected block, as you can see, and session controls. I don't have anything set up, and save. And I'll show you, I've already generated some high sign-in risk events as well, high and medium sign-in risk events by trying to simulate login from a Tor browser. I'm going to show you the same thing, ID protection dashboard. And here, as you can, risky sign-ins. As you can see, lab 006, it's already has its risky sign-in, and it shows that today it triggered high sign-in risk or medium sign-in risk alert. We can also validate the same policy, whether it applies to the policy to the user as well. Let's go to the conditional access policy again. This is the tool that Microsoft provides you and which allows us to validate the policy, whether it applies to the same user or not. So I'm going to select the lab user 06 from here, edit user, and I can select labs user 06, Microsoft Graph. Now sign-in risk, I will select medium and I'll try to see whether a policy applies to the same user or not. As you can see a high and medium sign-in risk, it will force the block access. Requiring multi-factor authentication will also apply, but this will also block the access. So now let's validate by trying to log in from the browser and see what happens. I'm gonna use the same high sign-in risk user, lab user 03 at f11labs.onmicrosoft.com, and I'll try to enter the password, and that's what we expect. The policy applies to this account. We detected suspicious activity on our account. When this happens, this will also trigger an alert, also open a ticket. It depends on how you have integrated your ticket system with Microsoft 365. But usually what happens is we receive within seconds, you will also get an email and that will open a ticket, and that IT admin will start investigating and will start contacting the user, and it will try to confirm whether did you travel to this place. If they say okay, if they say okay, then they can allow the user. However, if it does not, then they can start thoroughly investigating the logs. This has prevented the attackers from getting access to the account. That is why we need a conditional access policy to protect the account. So if we enable the high sign-in risk conditional access policy, if you're going to create it, that will prevent the attackers from getting access to the account. That means that will also significantly reduce the incidents, significantly reduce the downtime. So in this lab, we built a simple but powerful control. If Entra detects a high sign-in risk, the user is blocked automatically. So what this prevents? This prevents from credential stuffing attack, risky token usage, which means this prevents attackers from using the tokens or stealing the tokens from the user sessions. Suspicious location sign-ins, high risk identity compromise. If you want the full step-by-step lab, it's documented on f11.ca. If you like hands-on Entra identity security labs like this, subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next lab. Thank you guys.